We are just 19 days away from this year's highly contested midterm elections, and both parties are vying for support from a key voting bloc, women. According to the latest CBS News polling, Democrats are being helped by a widening gender gap in the race for the House.
According to the poll, men are backing Republican candidates by 7 percentage points, while women are supporting Democrats by 12 points. The gender gap has widened somewhat since last month. For more on what to expect from this year's midterms, we're joined by Stephanie Shriock in Washington. She's the president of Emily's List, a Democratic political group that aims to help elect pro-choice female candidates to office. All right, so we know your stance, your point of view here, Stephanie, but I find this very interesting. There are a record number of women that are running for office in this year's midterms, but there are nearly 4 times as many women running on the Democratic ticket compared to the Republicans. From what you're hearing, do you expect to see female Republican voters who have typically voted along party lines perhaps switch over or switch to Democratic candidates?
We do expect to see some of that, particularly independent women voters who often vote Republican. We're seeing that particular voting bloc swing over to the Democratic side, in a lot of these races, just purely because of the quality of candidates that we have running in some of these House seats that, I got to be honest with you, I'm not sure I would have recruited a Democrat to run in, and now we've got toss-up races in places, and it is a lot about these independent women who are coming our direction.
Now, according to a recent CBS News poll, women continue to think the Democrats in Congress are working for issues of concern to them and that President Trump and Republicans are working against those issues. Meanwhile, on the GOP side, the party's seen by 65% of women as working for issues that concern men. So what are some of the major issues helping drive female voters to the polls this year?
Over and over again, whether I'm out campaigning with our candidates or talking to voters, we hear the same thing over and over. Healthcare is a huge, huge concern for voters across the board, but particularly women voters. Women tend to be the ones who are managing healthcare in the family. They're taking care of their kids. They're often managing their parents' healthcare. They themselves deal with healthcare more than our male counterparts do. And so this concern about the Republican Congress looking to continue dismantling Obamacare has been a driving factor really for over a year and a half now, where we've seen more and more women activists, women running for office, and now women voting Democratic to protect health care.
I remember seeing a Quinnipiac poll about the Cavanaugh hearing, and particularly when it came to, suburban educated women, they supported and believed Blasey Ford, his accuser, and, they were not really supportive of him being appointed to the Supreme Court. So you have to wonder whether or not there have been, various scandals with President Trump in relation to issues with women and how he treats women and how he talks about women. But the Cavanaugh hearing, I think, really struck a chord with a lot of people. Do you think it had an impact and will have an impact moving forward when it comes to women maybe switching parties, voting for a female candidate or voting for Democrats in this midterm election?
I've gotten this question quite a bit, and I always sort of step back and remind everybody that we've already seen women just on fire, engaged politically in ways that we haven't seen for years. Whether those women were marching and then running in historic numbers. I mean, Emily's List has had over 42,000 women come to us saying that they want to run for office either this year or in the future. That's unheard of. And so we've seen this energy. And what the Cavanaugh hearings did is put gasoline on a fire that was burning mighty hot to begin with. So you better believe this energy is just going to keep growing through this election and beyond.
And this is the first election effectively since the Me Too movement was generated. In what ways have you seen the movement already impact midterms? I know you talk about the number of candidates on the Democratic side, but what is the mood among suburban white women, for example? Every election cycle, women outvote men, but suburban white women seem to have within their control the power to switch allegiances.
There's a lot of focus right now on these suburban, college-educated women moving over. to the Democrats. These are, a lot of these women in 2016 in 23 House districts voted for Hillary Clinton, yet maintained a Republican member of Congress. We are seeing that switch rapidly because these particular group of women are seeing that this Republican Congress refuses to stand up to Donald Trump and is, in fact, just enacting that agenda. So that's why we have so many of these suburban and exurban House seats in play. Seats, frankly, like some in Texas that were gerrymandered to be safe Republican seats, are now toss-ups. One, because of the quality of candidates like Lizzie Fletcher down in Texas against Culbertson, but also because you see this particular block of women voters who are swinging our direction because they want somebody in office that's going to stand up for them, hear their concerns, and really fight for their needs. And like I said earlier, healthcare is a big piece of that. But they're also just looking for some common sense, get this working, get this done. And that's what our candidates are bringing to this.
Yeah, Stephanie, when I saw the First Lady yesterday going to the Philadelphia area, I thought, that's exactly the kind of region that we're talking about. Not the city, but the suburbs of Philadelphia, which are wealthier, well-educated. And, she went to a children's hospital. She was talking about the opioid crisis, but the impact on children. And you bring up healthcare. She was at a hospital, sort of checking off all those marks. I suspect we'll see the First Lady and the President doing a lot of tours like that in locations very similar to Philadelphia and its suburbs.
I think that's exactly right. And what you're seeing is, increased enthusiasm among women voters. Now, we always say women as a voting bloc. I mean, the country's almost 52% women. And when you think that we're not so much a voting bloc as we are the majority, and when you look at the electorate, you made the point that women outvote men, and at times up to 53, maybe even 54% of the electorate could be women. And then you see that gender gap growing, and you can see a real opportunity for Democrats. But you're exactly right. You're going to see a lot of energy in these districts. One, continued massive turnout by African-American women who have already delivered some big victories in the last year and a half. I think about that Alabama Senate race where Doug Jones was elected. That was really the organizing and extraordinary voting numbers of African-American women. I think about the 40 legislative seats that Democrats have swung across the country in places like Virginia and Oklahoma. Again, high women turnout. I think this is just going to continue, and it's going to really be the driving factor of who's in control of Congress. And I think that's why Democrats have a real shot here.
Well, we only have a few weeks to wait to see how this impact unfolds. Yeah, Stephanie Shriock.